just to introduce myself, my name is Kasey Rosenberg, born and raised in the MIA, Miami, Florida. I dance professionally. So my background when I was in high school, I was on a contemporary company. So I was doing more of like the contemporary jazz, some hip hop, but more that world. I started going to school at when I was a freshman, and I went from dancing 30 hours a week to 2. So that was a real struggle for me, and I realized how much I was going crazy without dance. And so I kind of decided to audition for the Miami Heat Dancers on a whim. I was part of this student choreography club, and I was dancing like 2 hours a week. It was nothing major in terms of commitment. And a friend of mine was like, hey, the Miami Heat Dancers are having an audition. We should go. And I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll show up and I get to dance for a day. That was like, I get a free day of dance. So I showed up, and then I ended up making it to boot camp. And I was like, okay, cool. I get to dance for a week for free. So I kind of looked at it like just a bunch of free classes. And then I ended up making the team. I was 18 years old, which is the youngest you can audition for the team. Ended up making the team, and I was like, oh snap, okay, I guess we're doing this. And it ended up being the thing in my life that kind of changed the trajectory of my path, which is kind of crazy how life can do that. Things can change so out of nowhere and unexpectedly. So anyways, when I was on the team, I danced for the Miami Heat Dancers for 3 years. I held a leadership position on the team, and the Miami Heat Dancers are actually the first people that kind of gave me an opportunity to choreograph for a major audience. I had done a lot of choreography for studios and schools when I was in high school, and then I was continuing to teach when I started college, but the Miami Heat Dancers during my second season are the ones that kind of like believed in me and put me on the map as a choreographer and a teacher. So I'm super grateful for them, because they really did change my life. Like every time I look back at how different my path could have been had I not just gone out on a whim and auditioned. Like, it's insane to me. So anyways, just to tell you a little bit more about my journey, after I finished dancing for the Heat Dancers, I stopped once I had graduated college, because I felt like I had to do the normal thing, which was, move out of my house, get an apartment, get a big girl job. I was working full time for a neurosurgeon, and I just continued to side hustle and teach and choreograph as much as I could after hours while I was working full time. And I would kind of always joke about like, people would ask me, well, what's your goal? What's your dream job? And I would always joke and be like, well, really? Like, you want to know what my real dream job is? It's something that I'll never accomplish, but it would be to choreograph and dance full time and still be able to pay my bills. And I used to joke about that all the time, and just continue to teach and choreograph in my every free moment that I had, just because I loved doing it, not even because I needed the money. And lo and behold, I ended up on my 25th birthday getting offered a coaching position for a pro sports dance team. I became the coach of the Miami Marlins Mermaids. I did that for a couple of years, and then I also filled in as the interim coach for the Miami Heat Dancers while their coach was on maternity leave. I go back every single season. I help with auditions. I help with boot camp. I choreograph for them every single year. I've been choreographing for them since I was 19 years old. I'm 27 now. So I have been immersed in the pro sports dance world for quite some time, since I was 18. So it's been a minute. Time flies. So I am here to talk to you guys about how to prepare for audition day, and answer any questions for people that are sitting in on this session. So we are going to start off for preparing for audition day, knowing how to present yourself. So for both ladies and gents, that can mean your hair and your makeup, depending on what you're auditioning for, who you're auditioning for, and if they have a co-ed team or an all-female team. Things are changing. The landscape is changing quite a bit in the pro sports world. So this might vary across teams, but for the most part, really understanding for my ladies how to do your hair and makeup and how to dress yourself. So what I recommend, because I didn't have this resource when I was auditioning. You guys are so lucky that you have Instagram now, and all these teams are pretty active on their social media platforms. So number one, when it comes to understanding how to do your makeup for an audition or to be on the team, it's a little bit different than you might do your normal day-to-day glam or even going out. The arena lighting is a little bit harsh sometimes, so you're gonna need a lot more depth in your makeup and a lot more of a dynamic look to your makeup, so that you read on camera and you don't get completely washed out and flattened when you are dancing under those arena lights. So what I recommend is going to, for example, the Miami Heat Dancer Instagram. I know number one, they have put out a game day makeup tutorial. So that's a great resource. But the other thing I recommend doing is either going to the team's Instagram page and just pulling photos that they post of ladies on poster shoot day, game day, promo day, finding all these looks, going to a makeup counter. Yeah, if you are like clueless and do not know how to get yourself ready, that is okay. When I first started out, I didn't know what the heck I was doing either. Go to a makeup counter and they'll usually do your makeup for free if you purchase a certain amount of products. So it's not really free, but show them pictures of these ladies on poster day, game day, and be like, I need you to teach me how to make myself look like that. Yeah, like they can show you techniques and they can give you the right products so that when you're showing up for the clinics or the auditions or what have you, that you are able to look the part, feel confident, and look like you belong on their poster or their Instagram page or on court doing their choreography. That is a big thing. Also, same thing for outfits. Like, you should absolutely incorporate your own style because they obviously want to see your personality and your own individual style, like I said, but you still want to be on brand. You want them to see how you can fit into the overall palette. So use Instagram to your advantage. For instance, I'm going to use the Miami Heat Dancers as an example because they created me and I've worked closely with them, and I really do think that, like, just in terms of what's happening in the industry, they just nail it year after year. So I'm going to use them as my example quite often. And the Brooklynettes too. Those are both great teams in my personal opinion, for what to look for and how to kind of present yourself in the best light possible. They're really just ahead of the curve and they understand what is right. Yeah. So in their Instagram page, there will be, we had a mishap with this tripod. Hold on. Oh my God. Okay. That's fine. We'll leave this down. No big deal. So they have a lot of days where the girls actually have some freedom to bring their own outfits according to a color scheme. I recommend using those outfits that you see the dancers in to kind of guide you on how you should be showing up to audition day and to the different clinics that are available to you. So that's number one, knowing how to present yourself. So number two might be really obvious, but for some reason it gets overlooked. A lot of teams offer prep classes. Show up. Duh. Make sure that you are going to the prep classes. Try to do different styles so that you are exposed to the different things that might be asked of you on audition day. You typically do have to pay, but a lot of teams are also offering free services on their social media platforms where they do give you tips leading up to audition day. So that's also something to utilize, but it gives you a chance to get in front of the coach, the marketing directors, current squad members, actually interact with current squad members so they know who you are. You can show up, and I recommend showing up with your whatever you're thinking you want to do on audition day, your hair, your makeup, your outfit. Show up with something along those lines so that when the clinic is over, you can go up to the coach and be like, hey, does this work for you? What feedback do you have for me? Like, the coach might tell you, hey, I really like to see you with your hair straight. Like, that might be more what we're looking for. Or less black in your eye makeup. It really like it drowns you out. We can't, like, you don't look delicate. Because every team is looking for, they have a rough blueprint of what they're looking for year after year. So you might be the right fit if you just tweak a little something here and there so that you fit into their overall plan. So yeah, definitely take the prep classes. You can get feedback on your dancing, feedback on your hair and makeup, feedback on your outfit, even bringing in your headshots that you're thinking of using. Like, I think that's totally cool too. When I was coaching and I'm running on Audition, I can quickly pick out the ladies, in my case, because I didn't run co-ed teams, but the ladies that showed up to the prep classes, like, my eye immediately picks up on them being in the room. So definitely give yourself a chance in a smaller pool to be seen. Yeah. Number 3, working on your speaking and in-person skills. This is something that thanks for joining me. This is something that a lot of people don't think to work on before they audition for a pro sports team, which is really funny because you're doing a ton of interviews, whether it is your face-to-face interview with the marketing department when you're trying to get the job. You might be approached by their social media team to do a couple of clips during boot camp or audition day. You do on-camera interviews, sometimes for the news, sometimes for radio stations. There's a lot of potential for speaking time when you are on a team. So I definitely recommend getting more comfortable speaking in front of a camera and other people. Another part of being on a pro sports dance team is you're doing a lot of promotional events out in the community. You need to be able to talk to people in the community. Yeah. You are an extension of the brand. You are probably the closest a lot of people will get to the players. So the way you represent yourself in the community is a huge deal. And during the audition process, they will be looking for that. They need to know that you're someone that they can send out into the community and trust, or go send over to NBC6 or whoever and be like, okay, she can do a quick, speaking bit for you. So definitely working on your interview skills. Even if it's something as silly as just like taking your phone and practicing talking into it so that you can look at how you're kind of holding your face. Like, okay, I look kind of weird. Like, I know I cannot have my hair like this behind my ears when I speak into a camera. Like, I look crazy, right? So I know that I have to like kind of tussle my hair so that I look a certain type of way if I'm doing an interview. So just certain tricks like that will kind of help you stand out beyond just your look and dancing. Kind of piggybacking off of that, number 4 is treat it like a job. It is not just a dance job, especially now the climate is changing so much where it is not enough to just be beautiful. It is not enough to just be a great dancer. They are truly looking for brand ambassadors, and with the Me Too movement and all of this potential for criticism, because there are so many eyes on professional sports and their dance teams, you really do need to be the whole package. So what does that mean? When I say treat it like a job, number 1, do your research on the organization you are auditioning for. When I auditioned for the Miami Heat dancers, they legit gave us a quiz and asked us questions about the organization. You should know who the president is. When did they win their championships? What are some of the players they've been signing during the off season? Who is the owner? You should know all of these things. You should know the big facts, that you should know who the coach is of the team. Yeah, so make sure that you're being smart, because the same way you would research an organization that you are doing a normal job interview for, which I hope you do, you need to do that for this as well. For your resume, so most teams will ask you to bring a headshot and resume to audition day. A lot of people tend to focus just on their dance resume. Personally speaking, I know a lot of teams might be different, but especially like I said, with the changing today, I would recommend pulling your best dance jobs. And if you have any experience in the corporate world or the regular job market world outside of dance, if you're currently going to college, I would definitely recommend working that all into your resume because they want to see that you're well-rounded. You know, they are looking for young women and young men that can be role models to younger people in the community. So if you are, excuse my language, a badass who's going to school full time, you're teaching at a dance studio, you're working at a research facility in their bio lab, and you hope to be a cancer researcher one day, like you need to have that read in what you're presenting to them on audition day. And in terms of your headshot, what I would recommend is having either like a double-sided or 2 headshot options. If you're gonna show up with your hair curly and red, for example, I would have one headshot that matches your look on audition day so that they can easily remember you and find you. But also if you're one of those people that can kind of flex where it's like, okay, maybe you do your hair really curly one day and you can do your hair straight another day, or maybe you're someone that has like wild hair and like a wild fro, but you can also blow it out and tame it, I would add another option because maybe they're like, you know, maybe we don't need someone right now that has like a big crazy fro or like big wild curly hair, but look, if you blow her hair out, like she looks different from this veteran that we already have, and so maybe that'll work. You know, so you want to show that you have range. So I recommend bringing a couple of options. Also, in treating it like a job, before you audition, please go and look at your Instagrams. Clean up your Instagrams. The organizations do look at your social media platforms. So not to say that you have to be super conservative, obviously depending on the team that you're working for. But in my case, if I'm looking at potential dancers, for a team here in Miami, we're not super buttoned up, so I don't necessarily expect to go to someone's Instagram page and like not see them in a bikini and not looking sexy. But if I see pictures or videos of someone like getting drunk all over their Instagram or doing anything that's even remotely illegal, or using a lot of profanity on their Instagrams, I'm immediately gonna mark them with a red flag because I'm like, maybe they're not the best person to be setting an example for young people in the community or going out on promos and doing charity events. You really want to think about what is your Instagram communicating, what is your Facebook communicating. Do you look like someone that can be utilized as a role model? So if you see stuff that's questionable, like if you think that your grandma and your grandpa would look at your Instagram and be like mortified, delete that. Like delete that content, yeah? Because trust me, these organizations are looking at that. That includes your captions, the photos themselves. Even if your friends are saying nasty things on your Instagram or Facebook accounts, like go through and do a clean sweep. And that's just not for pro sports teams. That's, I mean, in the workplace in general, your social media presence does matter. But especially here, because a lot of times what happens is if you make the team, you get, a photo of you gets posted on the Miami Heat Dancer Instagram page. And yeah, most teams do not tag your actual account. And a lot of teams won't even follow their dancers until after they've left the team. But your friend's gonna see your picture on the Miami Heat Dancer Instagram page and tag you in the comments, and then all of a sudden, like, people can find you easily. So you are a lot more visible when you are on a team like this. So you want to make sure that, like I said, you are maintaining a certain image to set an example for those that look up to you when you're in that kind of a role. And so to get to the dancing, I know I've kind of built my way up to the dancing. So when you're thinking about dancing for a pro sports arena, big movements, right? You want to be able to be seen by people in the 400s. So something as simple as, like, if you're supposed to jump out into second position, a wider stance than you think, pick up your knees just a hair more when you're jumping out into that second, not like a crazy knee tuck, but like something as simple as like really stabbing your feet into the floor and sitting into your hip maybe a little more than you're typically comfortable doing. It needs to read from way up top. So also taking people into account that are way up top. A lot of times what I see when people are auditioning is they have their gaze just a hair too low. So from people that are in like the 2 to 3 to 400 level, it's gonna look like your eyes are closed. Yeah, so I always recommend like just not lifting your chin to the point that it's uncomfortable, but utilizing your chin and like keeping your gaze a little higher up than you're typically used to, so that you don't look like you're dancing like this, right? Because who wants to watch someone dance like this? Not fun. So big movement, chin a little bit higher, eyes a little bit higher, and then obviously you need to get comfortable with being sharp. A lot of teams use really big, sharp, precise movements because, quite frankly, like that's what reads. That's what reads up top. So like when I'm choreographing for the Heat Dancer sort of arena or the University of Miami Sensations, a lot of what I do is big arms. And like usually by the time someone finishes one of my routines, like their arms are gassed, but I do it because I know that that's what the people like when they're around. So that's tips for movement. Tips for improv and freestyle. So people underestimate how much freestyling you'll actually be doing. So there aren't just quarter break performances when you're on a team like this. A lot of times what's happening is if there is a really exciting point in the game, there's going to be what's called either a runaround or a sideline. I'm sure different teams call them different things, but it's basically where you're running out on court and you're doing these like small chunks of choreography. But before doing that choreography, there's time that needs to be killed while you're waiting for all your teammates to get on the court, to like assemble in whatever formation the coach or captain has asked you to get into. So it's kind of like a play. So the way players have plays, like you would call a play and you go out, but there's time before the play actually starts. So during that time where the play hasn't been started yet, you're gonna need a freestyle, yeah? And you can't just like step touch on court, because that's not gonna fly. I mean, maybe in some teams, but not in the teams that I consider to be top notch. So not only dancing before sidelines, but there's usually like a DJ booth situation where you're going to need to dance for other in-game parts, so in-game presentation bits. So like for those of you that have been to a Miami Heat game, something like going to the booth to dance with DJ M. You're only being filmed from here up, so you better know how to do interesting stuff with your upper body. And then so that's tips for freestyle with in-game. If you're going to audition, a little tip for freestyling at auditions is number one, I am a big fan of not trying to do too much before the combo. Again, you kind of have to tweak this based on what your strengths are, but what I have found is like I know that I'm really strong at doing like subtle sexy, and like that's kind of my thing. Like I can be super sultry, and I know that that's like my brand and how I'm gonna pull them in. So like what I would do when I was at auditions is like typically the combos are crazy full out, like really big arms, super tiring because you've been dancing full out for God knows how long. So what I would do is while everyone around me was going bananas before the combo started, and they're like trying to get aerials in and this and that, like I would be the girl that for an 8 count, I was just standing there like giving it to them. And so all this madness is happening around me, but because I'm the only person who's making the decision to do something different, there's that contrast. Where are the eyes gonna go? Right. And then I might give them a little like special something in terms of my movement quality. That's what I choose to do. And then after the combo, yeah, I'll throw in like a kick, a triple, this, that. Like I'll do a little bit more, but I want eyes to come to me to pull them in so that they can watch me slay the combo. And I also don't want to completely gas myself out before the combo starts. So that they watch me do the combo, I have their attention, and then if they want to keep looking at me, which I hope they do, I'm gonna amaze them with the other tricks and stuff that I can do after, yeah? But you don't want to just give it to them all up front, right? You want to like kind of lure them in, invite them to watch you for a second. It's like, it's a game, you know? You want to use that push and pull with your audience to make sure that they are captivated by you. So that's one tip for freestyle. Again, you might have to tweak that based on what your strengths are. So speaking of strengths, another tip is don't try to whip out things in your freestyle on audition day that you know you are not strong at. If you are not a turner, do not try to do 4 pirouettes in your improv before the combo starts. Or if there's an improv section in the audition, don't do it. If you know that you've got legs for days, then take 4 or 5 counts and give us a really nice tilt. Yeah? Like, do the things that you know you are good at. Show your strong suits. Also, if you are going to use something technical that you are strong at, don't try to resist getting so worked up and overexcited during that freestyle moment where you throw your technique out the door. Like, there's so many times where like I'll see dancers at auditions that specifically auditions for professional sports, and it's very overwhelming sometimes. Like, usually the turnout is pretty big. It's an extensive process. They do multiple cuts, so like it's very easy to get a little bit overwhelmed by it all. You've got like a lot of eyes on you. There's social media people. It's a lot. 100% it's a lot. So I'll see these dancers that I know from the community and I know they're strong technically, and then it's time to do freestyle, and it's like they would never like step and kick like with their crotch towards the audience. Like, they just do something that's like totally not technically well placed, and it's because they're just throwing themselves into something and rushing through the improv section with like absolute madness and not being conscientious of their movement. Just try to take a step back. Like, if you're gonna whip out a triple or 4 pirouettes or 5 pirouettes or whatever, like maybe take a second before you prepare and kind of like sit in your hip and give them a little hair moment so that you can compose yourself before you prepare for the turn. Make sense? So that way you're not like preparing with a turned in front foot and then you're off your balance and you're not like checking your center. So just don't do things technically that you wouldn't typically do. It was choreographed into your solo, your group dance, whatever. For those of you that are studio kids, like if you know that you wouldn't do something technically, then you have to have the wherewithal to keep that technique and keep that placement and be smart about what you're doing while you're freestyling. Make sense? So that's a little tidbit for improv and freestyle. It's so important. Like because nobody is gonna be impressed by whatever technical element you pull out if you botch it, right? Like, if you're typically a really strong jumper, like take a second before you do that side leap. It's okay. It'll pay off. Yeah, like you don't have to rush and squeeze everything into 3 counts. Take your time. Sometimes less is more. Make sure that you are training up until the audition, taking a variety of classes. It's no longer just like hair flips and struts. These people are actually dancing. So take hip hop, take jazz funk, take heels classes, take contemporary, take it all. You need to be training so that you are a versatile dancer. And like, that is more true. That's always true, but it is more true today than ever. Especially so when I think that was a strength of mine when I was auditioning, is because I was traditionally a contemporary jazz dancer where I was technically trained. I was able to incorporate a different flair, both in the combo, like during freestyle sessions, where it's like my movement quality stood out because I had a more expansive movement vocabulary, right? So it's like, it's kind of like if you are in school and you can't write at a 9th grade reading level if you're only reading at a 6th grade reading level. Does that make sense? So like, you need to be expanding your exposure to different movement qualities and different teachers so that you can speak multiple languages. By languages, I mean your movement, right? So with that said, take the time to research who these teams are using as guest choreographers. Typically, these sports teams will kind of have their little hub of people. Like, for example, like I work super closely with the Miami Heat dancers, right? Like everyone knows that I'm coming back in some capacity. I mean, knock on wood, hopefully they keep using me. I'm super grateful for them. But like I come back every single year, right? Whether it's teaching across the floor in their boot camp or teaching one of their routines for the final auditions, like I'm gonna be there. So what happens every year? Shortly before auditions, I start to see this like surge in people coming to my classes, and it's because they're about to audition for the Miami Heat dancers, and so they're trying to figure out what they're in for and trying to understand like what they need to do to nail what I might be teaching at the audition. My only thing is like I would encourage people not to do that just right before the audition. Like if you know you're planning 7 months out that you know you want to audition for a team, start going to those classes for the different teachers that work with the team ahead of time so that you have time to get better at what they're going to ask of you. So definitely research who they use as guest choreographers. Also, getting ready for audition day, you want to think about trying to improve your physical fitness, not just from an aesthetic perspective. Obviously, like that does get incorporated into their decisions sometimes. But like I said, the landscape really is changing. There's a lot more body positivity in the industry than there previously was. But at the end of the day, you want to be healthy. Boot camps and the season itself are both incredibly rigorous. I mean, the boot camps that I have been part of are insane. So you want to make sure that you're training your body ahead of time so that week you are able to perform at your absolute best, because you don't want to start kind of dancing less full out or with less power, or like you can't get your leg as high because your body is falling apart because you haven't trained up until that point. So like I said, it's not just about vanity, it's about being able to withstand the physical asks that will be happening during audition day, boot camp day. I mean, audition days can last up to 8 hours, you know? So eating healthy, drinking lots of water, making sure you're working out, making sure that you're taking classes, making sure that you're stretching leading up to that day. It's so important so that you don't get hurt, so that you're able to be your absolute best version of yourself. And then during the season, same thing. It's exhausting. Like you're practicing. So speaking from my experience, we were practicing Monday through Thursday night. Sometimes they don't go this late anymore, but sometimes until like 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. Like we were dancing for hours. Then our trainer would come work us out. So we were, we were rehearsing Monday through Thursday for several hours a day. Plus a lot of us were working out on our own time. So that's even more physical exertion. I was in school full time, taking 15 credits a semester. So you can only imagine that, like, if I wasn't preparing my body accordingly, like I would have fallen apart. And then you have game days, right? So you're doing 4 nights a week that you're practicing potentially. Then you have game days. So you're doing multiple game days a week. And on game days, you have a full court rehearsal. You have the routines that you're performing at the game, plus other in-game activities. Plus, like if you need to be places for in-game activities, you are running around the arena potentially trying to get to where you need to be. Running on court for different sidelines and runarounds, like your body is working. Yeah, working. So you need to make sure that you are preparing yourself accordingly. Yeah, totally. Thank you. That's a great question. So just to wrap up the preparation piece, and then I will take some questions, and that's a perfect place to start. Get clear on what your personal brand is. One thing I will say, so I kind of touched upon this earlier, is that every team each year, they kind of have a direction that they're trying to go in. There is an overall marketing vision that a team has. So you can think of that as kind of like the blueprint for the team that they'll be selecting. So in a blueprint, all you really have is like the outline for what the home looks like, right? So what makes the house a home is the different paint colors you choose, the furniture, the textures, like all these different elements that make a house a home. So think of the team as making that house, that is the team's blueprint, a home. And so they're not going to be able to see how you can fit and how you'll work with the different paint colors, aka the other auditioners or the previous, the veterans that have already made the team. They won't be able to see how you fit if you are unclear about what your color is, who you are, what your textures are, who are you. So take a moment when you are getting ready for these auditions, and like, even if it's pulling out a piece of paper and writing down what your strengths are, writing down, what you're most confident about, whether it's your dancing, your appearance, your ability to connect with others. Like, get clear on what makes you a catch and what makes you the perfect person to be on their team. Yeah, and read that list and try to improve upon that list. And even if you want to make a list of where you'd like to get a little bit better, that's great too. But really getting clear on what your strengths are so that you can be confident in the things that you already know you bring to the table. Yeah, and that way you can more easily stand out on audition day. So that wraps up how to prepare. I know I was talked a lot. So handling school and dancing professionally. It was hard. I'm not gonna lie to you. But I will say, so I didn't sleep in college. Like, I always joke around that I am still catching up on sleep from the sleep that I didn't get when I was in college. And I honestly wish that I had prioritized rest a little bit more. I think sometimes I tried to do a little too much because I was dancing for the team. I was also teaching at a studio and choreographing at the time. So I was definitely taking on more than I probably should have. One thing to think about when you are going to be dancing while in school is you're going to have to say no. You're going to have to say no to going to some of the parties, a lot of the parties. Just because, like, even if you have the time, by going out and drinking with your friends and staying out all night, like, you're depleting your body of nutrients and reserves that it needs to get through the next week. So I will say that you have to be prepared to say no, so that you can balance school and the team. I will say I really struggled my first season. I was 18, I was in the nursing program, and I wasn't happy in the program that I was in. And I was super overwhelmed by all of the changes. So I had to lose a lot of weight when I made the team. And I really struggled with that. I struggled with the stress that came with college. So I actually took a year off. So I did my first season. I really struggled. Like, I didn't feel like I was balancing things well. I took a year off. I switched my major. I figured my stuff out. And I ended up like doing really well in school. My second year in school, I was like making lists and just like totally kicking ass. And then I went back for 2 more seasons once I kind of figured out how to handle my academic career. So saying no, big thing. Making sure that you are eating and exercising for energy. So that might mean something different for you. Like, when at the time I realized that like I had to completely stay away from like processed foods, because I would eat it and I would just feel like so depleted. And I wasn't able to get through my days. My days were so long. And then also just not biting off more than you can chew, especially your first year in school or your first year on a team. I call it rookie syndrome. Like, you want to do everything, and it's great to throw yourself into it, but like, if you feel overwhelmed and you know you have a test one week, like, maybe don't sign up for 5 promos that week. Like, maybe only sign up for 2 so that you have your Tuesday and Thursday to study before practice, and then you can go to practice with a clear head and focus. So that's definitely one thing. And then surrounding yourself with good, positive, not toxic people. It's really hard to balance everything and handle school and dancing professionally and the pressure that comes with that if you have energy vampires around you. So make sure that you are spending your time with people, and even like who you're following on social media. I talk about this all the time. Like if you're following people on social media that make you feel like shit, unfollow them. Like don't open up your energy sphere to that kind of negativity, because it's gonna make it harder to get through practice, to get through, studying for that test when you get home at 11:30 at night and you're like, oh my God, I have to write a paper when I get practice tonight. Like that's hard enough as it is. Having toxic people around you is a surefire way to make it 20 times more difficult. So I hope that answered your question. That's just kind of like what my experience was trying to balance it all. And your relationships, like if you're in a relationship that's draining you, like cut that, because it is really hard to handle all the pressures in life with toxic people. Are there any other questions? What was your favorite part of being on the team? Two answers. I'm born and raised in Miami, and I grew up, going to UM games and like Miami girl through and through. So I really, really loved being such a part of the community. Like I loved doing like the Heat Academy promos where we were working with underprivileged kids. Like I really felt like I got to know my city and give back to my city in such like an intimate, cool way. So that was definitely one of my favorite parts. It's probably one of the parts that I miss the most, like getting to go out to like some of the, underprivileged areas and like hand out food on Thanksgiving. Like I really did enjoy that piece of it, because I just felt like I got to give my city a hug every single day. And then funny enough, like I really just love dancing. So it was less about like being on the posters and like going to Brazil and the Dominican Republic for like a bikini poster shoot. Like that was all super cool, and like I have memories that will last me a lifetime, and I got to do things that I never in a million years thought I would be doing at like 19, 20 years old. But I really I love rehearsals. I just love like busting my butt and sweating my butt off in rehearsals and just getting to like move until I feel like I'm gonna die. I think I'm probably like solo on that opinion. Like I loved rehearsals more than game days. So yeah, those like having a place to dance with like my team every single week and being a part of the community is one of my favorite parts. Is probably why I love coaching as much as I do, because I get to still kind of do those two things when I was coaching the pro sports dance teams. So yeah. Anything else? Good. Awesome. I know a lot of different teams are doing a lot online right now because it's like the only line they have to the community. So what do you do if you commit to some serious improv and you keep going? I've only messed up like a routine once on court, and it wasn't like a totally tragic moment, but yeah, freestyle, same as like any other audition. And I will say that I suggest that people, and I say this all the time in my classes, but dancing full out pretty much 100% of the time in your rehearsals when you're on the team, because when you're on court there's so much distraction. Like you have all these rover cams around you. Sometimes the rover cams have cords on them, so you're like, I don't think anymore, I think they're all wireless now. Back in the day when I was on the team, they had like these cameras with cords, so you're like feeling like you're playing jump rope with these camera cords, and you have like refs that are kind of creeping onto the court and players that are creeping onto the court, and then you can like see the whole entire bottom section of audience members, so it's not like being on stage, so that can be a little bit distracting. Then it's really loud, and then you have like the camera guys getting all up in your face, and you're trying to remember the dance and still look cute on camera, so it's a lot. It can be very overwhelming and distracting when you're performing on court, more so than when you're just performing on stage with a studio. So what I would say is that when you're in rehearsals, you need to be dancing full the hell out so that you are consistently honing in on that muscle memory, and you're making sure that you're like saving files, right, to your body. You want to be saving those movement files to your body the way they are intended to be performed, because when that adrenaline is pumping and all of those distractions are in the room, you are strictly relying on muscle memory. Like, you need to be in a place where you don't have to think about corrections or the choreography, because you've got 30 other things to think about. So that's what I think about that. Let's see. I guess I just want to know how to prepare during this time. Best way to get ready while I have the downtime. That's a really good question, especially at a time like now. So cardio, working out. I recommend doing circuit training, HIIT workouts, and then running. If you're able to. I know it can be a little bit high impact for people, but I find that circuit training, HIIT training, and running is what helped me get the type of stamina that I needed for boot camp and to make the team. And also really utilizing all of these online platforms. Definitely, like, if you're going to look at a specific team, like if you have your sights set on it, like, you should have your post notifications turned on, because anytime they are putting out like an online tutorial, you should be learning it, posting it, and tagging them. Like, whatever can kind of get your name in their heads, you should be doing that. And then taking as many of these virtual, like, you're so lucky right now that we have the technology that we do, where just because we're in the middle of a pandemic doesn't mean you can't train. So taking classes that kind of tackle all the things that I talked about here today. I've been teaching a lot of virtual classes, shameless plug. So if you want to like hop in on some of my virtual classes, that would be good. And then like, you have nothing but time, so makeup tutorials, going to these different Instagram accounts and looking at how they do their makeup, and just practicing on your face. Practice your hair, practice your face, practice posing for the camera. Like, if you can get a tripod and set it up in a room and like try to find what angles are attractive on your body and what reads best. Because like in boot camp, for example, like there was a day where they had all of us put on a team uniform and we did a photo shoot before we even made the team, right? Because they want to see like, okay, can we put her on a poster? How does she fit in the uniform? Like, you want to make sure that you're confident in front of a camera. And then, like I was saying, with, you know, practicing your speaking. So even if it's like, if you live with your mom or your dad and like you want to have them set up a fake interview with you where you can, you know, practice looking into the camera and looking back at your mom and dad. So like typically when they're interviewing you, there will be a camera person and then there will be someone asking the questions on the mic, and they expect you to kind of answer the question where you answer in a full sentence, complete sentence, so like the viewer knows what they asked you without necessarily having to play their sound clip. Does that make sense? So if they're like, Kasey, what was your favorite part of the Miami Heat Dancer 2019 boot camp? And I would say, you know, so-and-so, my favorite part of the 2019 Miami Heat Dancer boot camp was da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So I'm working that question into my response. And then working on your resume. I mean, I think that resumes, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to like career life, so that might be why I feel this way, but you should always be like editing and fixing and redefining your resume for sure. So I hope that helps you. When you're doing a resume, what are things that should and shouldn't be included? Specifically for a pro sports dance team. So same thing that you would have when you are doing a normal resume. Like I would still have like that objective at the top. Then your work experience. Oh, sorry. Let me start at the top. The headline, right? Where you want your name, your contact information. So making sure that you have an email with an appropriate email address. So if your email is like littlebadbootyshorty305@gmail.com. You need to get yourself a different email address that is appropriate for work. I like to use my name because it's easy to find me then if people want to send me an email. Like my email is bookKaseyRosenberg@gmail.com. So you want to make sure that you have an appropriate email address, a telephone number that works. I think that for a pro sports audition, you can either put like your height and your hair color and your eye color, what you would like normally put on a dance resume. I would say you can either put that on your resume, or if you can find a way to like work it into your headshot situation. So putting that on your resume is good too. And your work experience. So like I was saying at the beginning of the session, you may have just hopped on. I wouldn't limit it to just dance experience. Like for sure, if you have danced with artists or you have, video work experience, definitely putting those things in there. Like do not leave out your dance experience. But if you have worked at like a homeless shelter, marketing their homeless shelters team to raise funds for what, like put those types of things in there too, because they want to see that you're more than just a pretty face with dance moves. So normal work experience for sure should be on there. Your education, if you are going to college or have graduated from college, I would definitely put that in there too. What else? And then for you probably should take a look at the registration form. I would say that it's probably not necessary to put your dance training on your resume, because usually these teams will have some sort of either online registration or paper registration at the audition, where it asks you like what kind of training do you have, and that's where you can list whatever dance training you have. So I don't really think that that's what, like, the resumes are typically for the marketing portion of the team. So like you could potentially be sitting in a room with the coach, the marketing director, and the chief marketing officer, the CMO, and they're looking at your resume trying to figure out how you fit in their organization. So I hope that answered your question. I would do personal. Yeah, so the pro sports teams, they're not working with your agent. They're working with you. You become usually, so in the case of the Miami Heat, you become a part-time employee, not a contractor. Some teams do contractor situations, but I think a lot of teams are moving away from that. And when it comes to your individual pay and things like that, there's a standardized way that the teams do that. So like usually it'll be, everyone gets the same amount typically for rehearsal, except for maybe like the leaders and the captains. Typically there is like a step ladder for pay for game rates. There's a standard pay for promotional events. So when it comes to like your agent would typically negotiate like your rates, your hours and things like that. Like you're not negotiating that for this world. Yeah. So that was a really good question, Kasey. You're so smart. You get me to think of things that I wasn't really thinking about. All right, I had so much fun talking to you guys today. I hope that this helps. I hope you feel like you're a little more prepared for the pro sports dance world. If you want to connect with me on my own platform, I'm good. I'm glad. I am on Instagram all the time now, more than ever. So if you want to reach out to me, my Instagram is @Kasey.Rosenberg. Happy to answer any other questions. If you guys want more information, maybe I'll do a follow-up live session, can talk to the CDI fam. So thank you so much, CDI, for having me, and thanks for joining me today, guys, and good luck with everything.